if anybody disagrees with any of the following. Feminism is not about equality, it's about securing benefits for women. Anyone want to argue with me on that?
False. I mean, if you're talking about modern feminism, then maybe, but true feminism is not.
Well,
they're hijacking
when
the
was it
movement.
true feminism?
In the very beginning,
Really? Was
the
it?
very fundamental purpose of feminism. What's the definition of feminism?
I disagree, though.
What's the definition of feminism?
Sure. Well, okay, I'll give you the most generous definition I have of it. Now, what I actually think feminism is quite frankly a man-hating ideology.
Sure, I can agree that that's what modern feminists
Well, I think it's always been that way, but
always.
What? Yeah, always.
What happened in the beginning?
Always. Look up Seneca Falls.
You think women wanting to vote is like anti-men?
No, that's not what I said. I said feminism has and is anti-men. Has been and is anti-man.
You think it started off that way? Like,
Absolutely.
Do you think we should repeal the 19th?
No, I'm not that hardcore. I believe women should have the right to vote. However, speaking of the 19th Amendment, which is kind of related to, you're saying that, so the definition, okay. The most generous definition I give feminism is a woman's advocacy movement. It's never been about equality.
Advocacy for what?
It's been about women's advocacy. Now, feminism is not about equality, and here's why. Feminists will only pursue equality if said equality stands to benefit women. If they will not pursue some form of equality if that equality could conceivably or otherwise would be to the detriment of women. Here's a perfect example. In Florida, the National Organization for Women, one of the leading feminist organizations, very mainstream feminist organizations, fought against a bill to, I believe it was to equalize child custody between both parents. That would be equality. That's one example. Let's go back to, for example, you mentioned the 19th Amendment. Women were able to secure the right to vote without the corresponding responsibility, which was the genesis of men getting the right to vote, which was their being subject to forced military conscription. For the longest period of human history, men didn't have the right to vote either. Men got the right to vote before women because they had more responsibilities than women did through forced military conscription. What happened right before women got the right to vote? Can anybody tell me, please? In the 1910s.
Prohibition, like
World
amendment
War I.
order?
Okay, look, from 1914 to 1918, what happened?
World War I.
Jake kind of preempted that, but no, that's fine. That's fine. Okay, so it's very convenient that women waited until after one of the most deadly and brutal wars to secure their right to vote.
Well, really, it was men
able...
pushing for women to vote.
Weren't women
protesting? Well, that's not what the suffragettes want to tell us.
I don't think that we should ever...
Men and women are different. It doesn't mean that they shouldn't have the right to vote just because they don't have the same exact responsibilities as men do.
The other thing...
We're still citizens of a society where we pay taxes and we
But if we're
exist.
talking about, if you're talking about like on a more like social level, perhaps I agree with you. However, what is put down by the government, I'm failing how you can make an argument that women should have a right provided to them by the government without the corresponding responsibility that enabled men to have access to the vote, which was through forced military conscription. Right. And to this day, in order for a man to be able to vote, in 2024, he must register with the Selective Service. If he doesn't, it's a felony. If he doesn't, it's a $250,000 fine. It would preclude you from getting certain federal jobs, certain government jobs. It would preclude you from getting financial aid if you wanted to, be able to go to school. So, feminism has always attempted to secure privileges for women without the corresponding responsibilities.
Do you not support the women's right to vote, or do you?
I do,
okay,
but you were able to secure it. You were able to secure it without the corresponding responsibility, which is the genesis of feminism.
I asked that for a reason because I want to know why you support a woman's right to vote.
Because it occurs to me that that's the egalitarian thing, and I'm an egalitarian.
So it is a good thing that women have the right to vote?
Yeah, so
You're
then
trying to
what
get me on
No,
a gotcha,
I'm-
but
no,
I
I'm what-
believe women should have the right to
But
vote.
why?
Now you should. What do you mean? Why?
Well, you're arguing that there isn't a corresponding responsibility, and therefore that's why women shouldn't have had the right to vote at that time. But now I'm asking you, if you agree with that stance, then why do you support a woman's right to vote now?
Well, it's not that I think we need to walk back women's right to vote. I think it's an injustice that that women were not made subject to military conscription.
I can understand that you would feel that way. I just feel like there's differences in men and women, and the right to vote shouldn't be entirely based on that prescription.
It absolutely should.
I don't think it should be, because there's other
It's
responsibilities as a
fine.
citizen that you would have.
Even if I
that
concede
you should
to you-
still have the right to speak in our
What
politics.
government? So explain to me, what is the corresponding government force that is placed on women that coincides, that is in some conceivable way commensurate to forced military conscription? Explain it to me.
There isn't one.
There
And
isn't
one.
one.
I've
So
already
feminists
pointed out
secured-
that there's other
so hold on.
responsibilities that women
Feminists
have
secured-
as citizens
feminists
that should
secured-
still allow them the right to vote.
What?
We're still citizens in this country, and so we should have the right to vote for other reasons besides just one, which is the militant prescription.
But
We're
there is
still
no.
citizens, we still
Women
pay
don't
taxes,
have
we're
a
still part of society.
corresponding. There's not even a social.
but then I don't get
hold on,
why-
hold on,
Explain
stop.
why.
There's not even a civil, like what's the term for the civil service? Women don't even have to do
I
that.
know, and I'm
There
telling
is
you
no
there's
civil
a reason.
service.
It
What is
doesn't
the reason?
matter.
Explain the reason to me.
We're different. Men and women are different, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't have the equal
Not
right
according
to
to
vote.
feminists. But I'm
Well,
not making
we're
that
not-
argument.
I'm not a modern fake feminist. They're not true feminists. They stand for putting men down and claiming that we should have more rights than men. That's not feminism. So when you say feminist, I literally don't hear modern feminists. I hear original feminism, which had a very specific and very simple goal to have equality with men in the law, and that was the right to vote.
Right, but
And to eventually have a debit card and have a job and do certain things that women
right,
didn't
and
have
in
at the time.
today's society, there's no right that a man has that a woman doesn't.
Correct.
Yeah, that's-
Except, I've already explained this before, but except for the right to life. We don't have equal right to life.
Okay, we already talked about that. But again, so my position on this is that military conscription ought to be equalized. Women should be subject to military conscription.
Do you think having women be in the military, forced into combat and deployed, is a
So-
good idea if they're not even,
No, but here's the difference.
the same as men?
First off, man created, excuse me, God created, what is it? Holy fuck, I'm sorry guys, I'm butchering it. God created man unequally, Smith and Wesson.
Smith and Wesson.
Fuck it, holy fuck, how am I'm sorry guys. Nick, can you Google it? I've already butchered it. Maybe somebody in the chat. What's the whole equalization with Smith and Wesson? Women are capable. Women make excellent snipers. Women are capable of.
I don't
but
disagree.
Hold on.
I
Hold on.
disagree.
No. But hold on. I will grant you that yes, absolutely, there are differences between men and women. I think though, if you want to be equals, women should be subject to military conscription and they can be in support roles. But not allowing women to be subject to military conscription is a great injustice.
I could see myself being convinced of that. You make a good point on that in that aspect. But when you're talking about deployable and the men and women are the same in this regard, that they should both do that in order to have the right to vote, I don't agree with. But I could get on board with the last thing you said.
But then who are we fighting for if we're all just at war and no one's home?
Well, there's people of typically the drafting age. I don't know the exact drafting age.
And who's
but
taking
they're
care
not-
of all the kids
They're
at
not
home?
drafting 35-year-olds. If there was a draft, they're drafting 18, 19, 20,
What
21.
if they have kids? Why would you take away both parents?
Well, I'll tell you this much: if there was a draft, a lot of women would all of a sudden start getting pregnant. And actually, a funny thing, even women who are volunteers in the military, as soon as that deployment notice comes, all of a sudden, a lot of women get pregnant.
Maybe
That
because we weren't
that
designed
still
to go
doesn't
to
talk
war.
about-
Nah, you get
The right
a
to
lot
vote.
of female soldiers get pregnant intentionally to avoid deployment. Look,
I just don't think that equates to the right to vote. But
what do you do?
what do you mean? What do I do?
Look.
You can't argue. Or you're not even talking about the points I'm making, where we pay taxes, we're citizens. Those are still like completely equal situations that we have with
But,
men.
okay,
and we
here's
need
the
to
difference.
have an equal right of say
As a
in
man,
politics.
any man in this country, in order to be able to vote, you need to be subject to military conscription.
Yes, and we are different.
No,
Yes, we are.
not in this regard.
Well, we are.
Women ought
There's
to
a
be
reason
subject
for it.
to. No, there's not.
There is.
Women. Yes, but you guys did away with that. Feminists did away with it.
Hey, don't blame it on me.
Yeah, that's not real feminism. That's not an accurate representation of feminism. Feminism today says all the kind of things that are the antithesis of equality. So I don't believe that modern day feminists are real feminists.
Women can function in the military. I don't think that we should be putting women on the front lines, but women can be in support roles.
I already told you I could agree with that.
Right, and you
Sure.
should be subject to military conscription and the draft, and if there ever is one, you can be in a support
Brian, I
role.
have a question.
Go
You're so
ahead.
passionate.
Who
You should
voted
go
in
for
the
it.
19th Amendment? Men or women?
How's that
Because
relevant at
women
all?
couldn't even vote it in, so men did this. Why'd you do that? Why'd you
What?
give? Well, because you're saying
I mean, honestly.
because obviously
the
because
initial-
only men could vote, so it was men who brought
Right, so
in the
is that- I mean,
19th
actually-
Amendment at the time.
And
So
there's-
you did this to us.
I mean, I don't believe in viewing it as this like.
You guys know that like the
It's
original
true,
feminists
though.
were vehemently anti-Christian.
Yeah, honestly,
of them.
I think it was fine before
Yeah,
women
but-
could
but,
vote.
like-
I would be totally fine with that if everything stayed the same because
Hold on a
at
second.
that time it was like the man was voting for the household.
The whole doctrine of like of feminism in the early days was very anti-Christian.
Yeah, of
They
course.
thought that they wanted to destroy Christianity because they thought that the only way to liberate the woman was to destroy Christianity.
That's not true for all early feminists.
There might have
A
been
lot of
one
early
or two.
They
feminists
were
were
also
Christian,
they were
and
also
they were pro-life.
terrorists.
But if you look at like you can
Terrorists.
like I've spoken in this book before. There's a book called Occult Feminism by Rachel Wilson, and she goes through all of the basically like the major early suffragettes and feminists, vehemently anti-Christian. Many of them actually practiced a lot of like witchcraft and like blood magic and all that sort of stuff, and a lot of them married very powerful men. Like your Rockefellers and these sorts of guys who would then go and fund these movements and with the intention in mind of destroying Christianity and creating a new world religion. It's all very well documented. So when you say you ideologically align with the early feminists, would you say that you ideologically align with those people, or is there anyone in particular who you can
I say I align with the original version of feminism.
Do you know
I don't
much about the
align with
original version of
people.
feminism?
I don't
Like
align
Susan
with
B. Anthony?
Yeah, I don't align with specific feminists who were everything the antithesis of feminism. I'm talking about the original feminism. Yeah, exactly. Susan B. Anthony is a perfect example of someone who was a true feminist, who actually stood for equality, was pro-life, and said, we don't need abortion to be equal to men, but we should have some level of equality in the law and have a right to vote because our vote matters and our voices matter.
Yeah.
But okay, so here's why men got the right to vote before women. And again, for the vast majority of human history, both men and women didn't have access to vote. You had kings and queens and tyrants and monarchs and all this sort of thing. So one of the reasons men got access to the vote before women, and it was for a very short period of human history, women caught up very quickly. Again, it was because of military conscription. If your representatives could send just you to war, then, and not women, that was the basis of why men got the right to vote before women.
I understand that, but we're talking about a different basis for women. Like, you can look at other countries and say that there's not a right to vote for women for other specific reasons. And do you agree with a woman not having the right to vote? Like, that's what I'm saying.
I
Like,
can't speak to the specifics of those countries, but
Sure,
I
but
do
that's what
think
makes us
women-
unique as the United States of America, is that we do value freedom of
You
speech.
keep trying to get me in a gotcha. Again, I'll reiterate again. Yes, I think women should vote, but
It's under a
I'm not
different
trying.
basis.
I'm not trying to walk back the women's right to vote. What I'm trying to say, it's an injustice that men are subject to military
J_Satch_88 donated
conscription and women aren't.
$100. She just said you did this to us. Really? Men did this to themselves, not you. You got included when you got the right to vote. Men voted men in. Tell me you don't know what a logical fallacy is.
Look, the reality is, I believe, I don't know, thank you, Satch88. The reality is, I mean, I do think eventually there's some, they've tried to bring legal cases against this discrimination against men when it comes to the military draft. Frankly, it needs to be equalized. Are you against that?
I'm not against it. No, I could see myself supporting it. I already told you that about the position.
So
that
wait,
you,
what are
you
we
provided.
arguing about?
Well, I said hypothetically I could agree with you, but
actually not sure.
but I still think that we're talking about the difference between the original decision that women had the right to vote, and then you're talking about like a modern day fix to women being like drafted and everything. So we're kind of talking about two different issues.
No, but okay, this all stemmed from me saying that feminism is not a true equality movement. It only seeks to secure privileges and preferential treatment for women. So do you think that rights come with responsibilities and duties?
Absolutely.
Okay, women were able to secure a right without a corresponding duty.
Corresponding to men, but corresponding to the United States government, we are citizens, we pay taxes, we have a right to speak, and under the Constitution.
Yes, and
so
under the government, I don't know how else to explain this.
It doesn't have to be equal to the
Yes,
men.
it does though.
It does.
Yes, it does.
Because we're different.
That's irrelevant.
The equality
That's
of the right to vote shouldn't be gender based.
There's a clause, I don't know if it's in the Constitution or an amendment, but is it an anti-discrimination? Hold on. The anti-discrimination
No taxation without representation.
Clause
Anybody?
in the Constitution.
What time is it?
Trying to find it. Hold on. This whole trope, then shouldn't we just make the argument? We could just as easily make the argument that men and women are different, ergo, women should not have the right to vote.
I already agree with you about your prescription.
No, but if your position is that men and women are
drafted.
different, and that you have this, women are damsels in distress, and they're not capable
They're not
of
damsels in distress.
providing or assisting in the war effort, then
At that time in history, that's what happened. So we're either arguing that what happened was wrong, and then therefore you don't agree with the women's right to vote based on how it happened, or you do, and that's the reality of it. The women have the right to vote. And
well, I can't go back and undo history, but
But would you if you could?
No, again, you keep trying to get me in a gotcha here.
Well, because
but I'm in
then-
favor of women voting. Okay.
But you don't want them to vote unless they have that same
But
prescription as
it's
men.
curious to me that women were able to secure a right without the corresponding responsibility.
It could be curious, but that's just what happened. And I think there's still good reasons to have a right to vote, even if you're not part of that. But I pay taxes. I want to be able to vote on how high those taxes are. There's other reasons that you have responsibilities as a citizen to have the right to vote than just
So are
that.
men second-class citizens?
No, they're not.
Well, they absolutely are under this current setup.
They have a different conscription than we do right now.
But there is no
for the military.
corresponding government force there's no civil service for women. There is nothing enforced by the government on women that corresponds to males' duty to register with the selective service and be subject to military conscription.
Right, which is why I agreed with your suggestion to do that. Otherwise, we could also just get rid of it entirely. Obviously, that's just a pacifist view.
But you offered this up in rebuttal to me saying that feminism
Yes.
has never been about equality. It's been about women's advocacy and securing benefits for women. Would you agree that women being able to get the right to vote is a benefit?
I think it's a responsibility. It's a right. It can benefit you or it can't benefit you. It's not necessarily directly a benefit.
Okay, so am I wrong to state that women were able to secure the vote without the corresponding responsibility of being subject to military conscription?
The way that men did, that's a historical fact.
So
yes.
regardless of whether men and women are different, which I agree with you, we are, you're offering that up in rebuttal to my statement that feminists attempt to secure rights for women without any corresponding responsibility.
That's one example. If you want to, we could talk about other things besides voting. We've spent all this time on voting. Do you have any other examples of things that women are trying to fight for?
I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Well, I gave you the National Organization of Women example. Feminist organizations will frequently fight when it comes to like the family court system. They'll fight for presumed 50-50 custody, for example.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't necessarily agree or disagree with that. I mean, I haven't really looked into that as much, but I don't think that one feminist organization of our modern day is representative of a true feminist movement.
Okay, but again, I said that my view of feminism is not an equality movement because it's always about securing benefits for women.
What do you think is the current modern feminist view? Is that the same thing? You don't think that?
Yes, because here's why. What would be equality? Equalizing military conscription in this country.
So
correct?
That's pretty much your big crux. Like that's what you care about the most. Is the military?
That's
aspect.
A major.
They go to die at war, so it's pretty important.
Absolutely, but do you agree with taking away men from being?
I mean, I'll give you more. I'll give you.
Would you want men not to do that then? Like go to war? Are you a pacifist?
Well, here's the.
Because of course I agree that it's a
war is
thing.
bad, but I recognize that no, you can never get rid of the draft because conceivably there could be some scenario on the world stage, some military conflict that would require a draft to occur. So no, and it's not even politically tenable to ever get rid of the draft. Frankly, it will never happen. So we must equalize the draft in the name of equality.
Okay.
Seems like you guys have been agreeing this whole conversation.
Yeah, I've already agreed with that aspect of it. That if that was actually put forth, are you putting forth that legislation? Are you working on that right now? Because I would be.
I'm a podcaster.
I know,
I'm
but you're very passionate. I'm saying maybe you should.
I advocate.
Maybe
I
you
frequently advocate for men, but the point I was trying to make is that feminism is not an equality movement because
it should
1
be.
sextillion 111 sextillion 111 quintillion 111 quadrillion 111 trillion 111 billion 111 million 111,111 donated $100. My helicopter goes at
I'm just confused because you're trying to fucking.
We're just going back at it.
You're literally trying to argue with me.
I'm pretty sure we mostly agree. The reason why I'm feminist is very straightforward and it has nothing to do with that aspect.
I think you're not even like listening to what I'm saying. I have a pretty coherent worldview on this.
And I agreed with you. And I'm
Then
saying
why
you should
are
put
you
it into
arguing?
legislation. Because you keep bringing back the historical aspect,
But
and you
you're
can't
like-
change history. Like I'm just
No,
acknowledging
but-
that history happened, and I'm giving you a reason why it happened.
Holy fuck. I am saying that feminism has never been an equality movement because if fighting for an equality could conceivably come at the detriment of women, aka being subject to military conscription, feminists will not push for said equality. They will not fight for said equality if the equality does not benefit women. And that's evidenced by the fact that even back in 1920, women secured the right to the vote without a corresponding responsibility of being subject to military conscription, and it's still the case in 2024.
Sextillion 111 quintillion
Jesus, again?
111